office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220, or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
diwli lanni maaro lanni
fop lanni
awa joni mi anda honno guerdeten e ngal ɗo sabu e ngal ɗo Ibrahima jonnal taw joni mi anda se yahay kapitiki ñawloɗen ha humpodiren e makko est ce que on noon e warude ane kore Ibrahima mo makko to woni mo Amérique ko Amérique.
If not, I would duly oblige.
I think it is best you do, sir.
I take off my mask.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think I recognize that voice. I think so. You know, there is this saying that when a gladiator goes down, the voices kill him, are voices that are familiar. On this occasion, I would emotionally applaud that voice, encouraging me to plod on. Thank you very much, my brother. All praise and glory be to the Almighty God, who made it possible for all of us to be here today. Before I proceed, I must say a special thank you to a dear friend, Mr. James Bahum, who is here today and was meant to introduce me. But for some miscommunication, that couldn't happen. And I publicly apologize to him profoundly. And I'm sure he would understand. And by the grace of God and with his willingness, we would be honored to have him perform more important functions in this campaign. I hope you understand, my brother. Thank you very much. The lights are blinding me, so I would put aside my speech and just talk like I'm having a conversation with my fellow countrymen and women. I thank those who are watching this from television or those watching online. And I also thank my family, in particular my beloved parents of blessed memory, who before their passing endorsed or granted me permission to embark upon this journey. This is a very important journey, not just for me, but for all of us here present today, because it is about the state of our country and the welfare of our people. Our beloved Gambia is at a serious crossroads. The country is regressing and our people are suffering. Cost of living is skyrocketing, and there are no effective mechanisms in place to prevent unreasonable price hikes. The ordinary people are at the mercy of predatory businesses whose primary concerns or objectives are just profits. A friend once told me that in the Gambia, in several homes, people can't afford to eat meat. They do so only twice in the year, Tobaski and Korite, and maybe occasionally when there is a naming ceremony in between. That's a very sad situation. It pains me. Salaries here are exceedingly low because they are unregulated and there is no minimum wage. The average salary is far outstripped by the cost of living. In effect, workers are not generally afforded a decent standard of living. In fact, a lot of them are deprived of dignity. I say this because I have come across people who, even though they are working, they would go and beg in order to supplement what they earn. Another dismal situation. This is a country where laborers and housekeepers earn more than clerks, and more than civil servants, and sometimes they even earn more than police and other security officers. That is shocking. And I also do understand that in some instances, they even earn higher than graduates. Due to the low wages and poor conditions of employment, corruption has been on the rampage in the country. Recently, people have seen the report that was produced about corruption in the country. And it is said that there is more corruption now than there was 6 years ago. A woman came to my house one day to complain about the situation, and she told me previously one person would do the eating, but now too many people are doing the eating, and therefore corruption continues to fester, whereas the ordinary people continue to suffer. And with this, every day, people continue to die in the hospitals because of lack of basic facilities. I can relate to that. My father, who I loved so dearly, passed away last year in circumstances that could have been avoidable. He was taken to Serekunda Hospital very early in the morning at around Fajr prayers. He was there. Apparently, his blood sugar level had gone up. And the doctors were trying to stabilize him. Sometime around the evening, a Gambian doctor who was married to a former classmate and brother of mine called me and spoke to me privately. And she said to me, "Mr. Faal, you must do something for your father. If you don't take him from here, he would die unnecessarily." I looked at her and I said, "But why?" She said to me, "He is now showing symptoms that he would have, or he would lapse into diabetic coma. And if he is not put in intensive care, you would lose him. He should have been in intensive care since the morning." So I asked her, "Why? We've been here all day. why didn't you put the old man in intensive care? She said, because we don't have one. I was shocked. A whole hospital. A whole hospital, Serekunda Hospital, did not have intensive care unit that could have saved my father. We made arrangements to take him to a hospital that had intensive care unit. And it was suggested that I take him to a private hospital. When I called that private hospital, the first thing they told me was, can you afford it? It's very expensive. I thought that our primary occupation, our primary preoccupation would have been to think how to save a person's life. But here we were talking about dollars and cents and whether the family could afford it. So I said to the person on the other line, yes, fortunately we can afford it. Please make the intensive care unit available for him. We would bring him ASAP. Thank you. So we now had to plan to get an ambulance to take him to the hospital. That was a big challenge. After much running around, we were able to arrange for one of the spanking new ambulances waiting out there to take my dad to the hospital. But there was no driver, and the keys were not there. We had to start negotiating to get a driver, first to get the keys, and then to get a driver or the driver. Fortunately for us, we were able to reach the driver who was at home in Bakau, who was willing to come and drive the old man to the hospital. But he said he must take his shower and eat his dinner before he would come. So we had to wait. We had no choice. We had to wait. Well, he came, he arrived after about almost an hour and a half to 2. The old man was suffering. But then I realized that this was a COVID ambulance. And I asked the driver, say, look, my dad is almost 80, was around 80 at the time. He had pre-existing conditions. Would it be safe to put him in that ambulance? The guy said, oh no, it's sterilized, it's sanitized, we've done all the cleaning, it's okay. I made him sure that it was okay. Not having a choice, we let the power in the van. Lo and behold, there was no air conditioning in that ambulance. I drove right behind them. By the time we arrived at the private hospital in Serekunda, which is really ordinarily 30 minutes away, but because of traffic, because there are no roads in this country, we couldn't get there until about after 1 hour, 1 hour 15 to 1 hour 30 minutes. By the time my dad was being removed from the ambulance, my brothers were frantically fanning him with their clothes They were all bare-chested, fanning him with their clothes, because there was no air conditioning. He got into the hospital and they start doing resuscitation, CPR. Some hours later, my father passed away. It was an avoidable death. The medical or the healthcare situation in this country is a death trap. You go to this hospital with a headache, you come out in a stretcher. That's how bad it is. We are all victims. People are dying because there are no gloves. People are dying because there are no rudimentary facilities to carry out basic procedures to help them. I spent a lot of time in Dakar, and a lot of the times that I receive calls on Gambian numbers is because a Gambian has died in a hospital in Dakar and they needed help to repatriate the body. That is how bad it is. Growing up as a child, a lot of Senegalese used to come to the Gambia for medical treatment. Today, a lot of Gambians make the journey to Senegal for basic medical services. Another terrible situation. The quality of education in this country has deteriorated so badly. Most students in grade 10 and 12 fail their exams. The performance in English, maths, and the sciences is depressing. Many of the teachers are simply not qualified or not good enough for the job. The schools hardly have any facilities, let alone be labeled schools in the 21st century. To add insult to injury, the poor quality education is offered at very high costs. Even middle-class families would require help from abroad to be able to pay the school fees. Then you go to employment. Employment opportunities are extremely lacking. Young men and women complete their education at very high cost. They can't find jobs. Many of them resort to perilous journeys across the desert and the Mediterranean in order to find or look for greener pastures in Europe. In fact, they call it Barcelona or Barsaha. And you ask them why? Well, if they don't have anything to live for, they have everything to die for to get something beneficial. So they go on the back way. Why can't they make it here? Those who decide not to venture in this perilous journey, they seek other distractions in the country. I notice that quite a number of the young boys, they hold on to football. Football is the it nowadays. That is the hope. But how many of them can turn professional? Very few. But at least the hope would have been heightened if there were proper football pitches for them to practice and hone their skills. Unfortunately, the pitches that have grass in this country can be counted on one hand. One whole country no football pitches for the sport that the youth hold dearly to. That is the outlet that gives them hope. But these facilities, basic as they are not available. I know that even in our homes, we do have gardens that are well manicured. A whole nation, we cannot have football pitches that are grassed for our youth and the young people to play on. Really shocking. But for those who cannot hold on to football, many of them take to drugs and alcohol. And it's very sad. If you want to find out, pass through Kololi Tavan. Your heart would bleed because of the number of young boys and young girls you would see hooked on cocaine, marijuana. Well, even that is mild and basic. I understand ecstasy is on the rampage in Gambia. Where is law enforcement? Where is drug enforcement? The other day, I learned that one kid was arrested somewhere around Kololi. 15 minutes later, he came back and they asked him, "So nakalanak?" He says, dama len jox 5 aach rek ñu bàyyi ma ñoo ma wàccee si fii sax. That is how sad it is. We are losing our young people, a lot of them, to drugs and alcohol. The agricultural sector is not any better. It is on a significant decline. I recall very fondly when I was a child living in Sukuta, because we lived close to the market. My mother would occasionally take me with her in the evenings or sometimes early in the morning to go to the market to buy beautiful vegetables. Those glory days are gone. Even the Chinese are competing with the women in Gunjur for these little narcos to farm on them. Very shocking. And we are here applauding them. It is very painful. Not only have those vegetables disappeared, the fishes that we had in abundance are no longer to be seen. Growing up in Banjul, Koboros died off. We bought them to what we call Safalchin. Now, Bonga or Kobo is unaffordable to many. A lot of our fishes are finding their way to China or neighboring countries, and we cannot police it or we cannot control it. And our people continue to suffer. The environment in a lot of these fishing towns and villages, like Gunjur and Sanyang, have been so badly desecrated by poor and ill-thought investments that do not benefit the Gambian people. They don't even benefit the people who live there. Another sad situation. But you know what? With the almost disappearance of our agriculture, the saying comes to mind that a country that cannot feed itself is doomed. And that is what is happening to us. Instead of growing our jahatus, we import them from Senegal. Instead of growing our supermess or our cabbages, we import them from Senegal. You know what that means? We're throwing away money that we could have saved. It is double losses because it could have been local production to be purchased by us, and the locals would earn money instead of exporting money away, that is throwing it in the bin. It's like paying rent. It's a terrible situation. An examination of every sector in the Gambia reveals a nightmare situation. Even the security situation in the country is now deteriorated badly. People are no longer safe in their homes. If you think you have so much money, you can hire a watchman and you'll be fine. Well, you'd be lucky if the watchman does not attack you and your family to take away what you have, because he too does not have food at home. That is the situation of this country. The truth is, mbir mi doxul. Kuwol mantama molbe batata. When COVID-19 broke out, I had the opportunity to travel through the country, the length and breadth of it. I went from Banjul to Buduk, from Kartong to Koina, just to help my Gambian brothers and sisters. That journey changed me. The journey revealed to me what real Gambia is for the first time. I can tell you, it's in a very sorry state. It is a Gambia in which the government is not present in 90% of the country. Ask me why. You go to many places, there are no schools, no hospitals, no clinics, no social services. Yering, nothing. Not even potable water. You know, I happen to have lots of contacts in the provinces. And many communities, when they call me, what they ask for is to help give a contribution for them to build a borehole. And I ask myself, why can't we have a government department that builds boreholes for communities that don't have them but need them? All it takes is to buy a vehicle that does it and buy the necessary materials that go with it. Where is the government? It is sad. I read a report that was published just a few days ago. 45% of the urban population do not drink good water. The Nawek pipes are all infected. That is the sad situation. That is the story of this country. I recall in my journeys, I went to Birkama with this crew of committed young men and women. We drove all over the country trying to help. And we arrived at a house in Birkama, a home in Birkama. And the moment I entered in the compound, I saw that they had slaughtered a big rat. And it was placed prominently in the steps of the home with the kids around it. I was surprised when I first saw it. But when I came closer, I realized that it was slaughtered in the Islamic way. It meant, therefore, that these people actually caught the rat and went through the process of making it halal. But there was nothing to cook it with. When we provided them with the food aid that we were busy giving out all over the country, comprising of a bag of rice, cooking oil, tomato paste, onions, and what have you, the kids in that home went ecstatic. They were jumping and clapping. This is a rat they had killed. This is a very sorry situation. This is what you have in Gambia. It's a very sad situation. Is there anybody here who's happy with that situation? Show me your hand. Anybody? No hand raised. It is obviously a dismal situation. But one would ask, why are we in this situation? What is stopping us from prospering like all other societies? Even Guinea-Bissau, we used to look down upon them. They are beating us now. You know, so moytu dinañ jël ndaare. And that's what Musangom used to say. And that is the truth. What is stopping us is the failure of leadership and the focus on petty politics based on what is your surname or which part of the country were you born. We are fixated on foolish parochial values that keep us firmly rooted in the grasp and the clutches of mediocres, and they rule us, and we cannot do anything about it. For us, politics and leadership has for the longest time been the reserve for those who are not very successful in our society. And let's call a spade. Let us not maslaha the truth. That those days should be over. That is one of the reasons why we are lagging behind. Let's end the maslaha of the truth. Let's call a spade a spade. I don't know a country in the world which has been developed by the least educated in that society. Do you know of any? No. Why do we think we choose leaders who do not have the requisite, well, I should not say the requisite qualification because our constitution says O level. I wonder why we should bring the bar so low. Well, perhaps because the previous occupants of those offices did not have any better qualifications. So we were stuck with that. We choose the not so educated and the not so accomplished to be our leaders. And you know what? The politics is made dirty. Because if one is very educated and very accomplished, they make the politics not worth the while for you. So they make it dirty. It's mudslinging. It's about name calling. It's about insulting. It's about talking about useless issues and not focusing on the things that are important for our development. So the educated people run away. They stay away And some, like me, took international jobs and did the usual fankung fankung. You care about yourselves and your families. And the rest of the people are left to fend for themselves. Some of the young boys, I understand nowadays even the girls would go on the back way. So nothing happens. If you travel out of the country, especially if you circulate among intellectual circles or professionals, you find too many Gambians. You know how they call us? Oh, another one from Gambia, small Gambia, big, big noise. That's how they call us, because we are so active out there. We are leading a lot of things in the world. We are tops in many things that we do. People around the world listen to us. We contribute to the development of other countries. We contribute to the development of other organizations. And Gambia suffers from the brain drain. I know it because I have lived the life full-time for 20 years. I still work at the International Criminal Court. I still work at the Special Court for Sierra Leone. I still do cases internationally. You see, when I started doing the TRRC, some people said, "Oh, I did not know there were Gambians like you." I say, "Oh, you don't know, there are many more better than me who are still out there, and we need to bring them to develop this country." I had one experience. When I was doing the TRRC, many people, including some gentlemen I see in this crowd, went to my house to try to convince my father to let me run for the office of president. In my house, politics was hardly ever discussed there. And the reason was, if you have a person you perceive to be the star in the family, he's working abroad, making money and helping people in the family, you don't want that person to start talking about politics. Because in Gambia, they destroy you. Because in Gambia, they neutralize you. How do they do that? They marabou you to nuts. So you know what you do? You protect your own. You isolate them, you insulate them from politics. And my house was not any different. My dad acted accordingly. My mom was the strictest person in the house. So politics was never discussed. But several groups went to the house. Women groups, people from all over the country would go there and try to convince my parents to let me run for office. I was always saying to myself, that's what I thought. Until that day, I went to the house and my dad told me that, you know, it is the people like you who are responsible for the malaise in this country. I said, who? Me? We are contributing that. He said, no. He says, during my day, during our time, we were prepared to make sacrifices for this country. And he told me of a story of when he was posted to Sinchinjabo. And I have recounted this story severally, in several places. So when he told me that, I said to myself, you know, there is some truth in this. whether we like it or not. It is our responsibility to develop our country. And if all of us, the very educated and the very enlightened, would run away, well, we would leave the country to other people to develop. And they may not be up to the task. And that is what has happened to us in this country. And from that day onwards, I said to myself, I would do whatever I can to make my contribution to save this country. And that is why I accepted the onerous job of being lead counsel in the TRRC. Maybe people would not know, but I took that job with a lot of sacrifice. But my country is worth it. The Gambia is worth it. And when I took the job, I made a commitment that I would do my job dispassionately. I would do it without fear or favor, without affection or ill will. I will do it without looking at the eyes of anybody or asking what is your surname or where you come from. I will do it professionally. And that is why, when COVID broke out, I traveled all over the country to help Gambians. A group of well-meaning Gambians who called themselves GNF gave me the responsibility of helping to raise funds, to buy much-needed supplies and distribute it around the country. I'm proud to say that we helped over 5,000 households across the country, from Banjul to Kerr. But you see, the love for the country is not an exclusive reserve for me. Gambians love their country, and that is why when it became absolutely necessary in 2016, when Mandinkas were being insulted and their genocide is being called for, we all raised our hands and said we are Mandinkas. And we all came together as one people and ousted a dictatorship. Unfortunately, the promise of 2017 turned out to be a false dawn, sadly. We are still faced with serious challenges. It is time to confront these problems head on and choose the right leadership to turn around this country. I believe with us, we can turn around the country for a better Gambia for all of us. I believe that it is our generation, my generation, me, you, and everybody else included. It is our time to come and take over our country and change this country for good, for the betterment of all. Every day I come across women selling groundnuts, parched groundnuts, or other street foods around. I come across taxi drivers, laborers, young boys whose only hope is to have a friend or cousin abroad who would help them with a visa. I come across students at the university, even professionals. And all they yearn for is change in this country, a change in which we would entrust the leadership of this country into the hands of educated people who can run this country. This is a change that Gambians ask for. Our generation is being called to step on the plate and stop the abdication. We are being called to come and save our country and to stop giving our back to it. And that is why I am running for president. I am certain that under my leadership, we can turn things around for the better. I am keenly aware that my speech today is not intended to unveil a manifesto. However, I would give you a synopsis of what I would intend to do if I have the privilege and the honor of being elected into office. And the first thing, my biggest priority, would be to help bring about unity and reconciliation amongst the Gambian people. We are so deeply polarized. The programs I am going to talk about are not provided in any order of priority. Indeed, our country has too many priorities because we have too many problems. We should assess and take a full and proper accounting and control over the natural resources of this country. You know, there is some digging going on in this country and nobody knows what is being done. Nobody knows what they're digging or what they're looking for or what they are extracting. Isn't that a tragedy? I recall the case of Carnegie Minerals. At the time, the government just did not have a complete grasp of what they were mining, and it led to serious problems. And unless and until we know what it is we have and what it is that is being extracted, we would forever remain being hoodwinked, we would forever remain trapped in unfavorable contracts that we may not be able to untangle. This is important. We have to provide the right type of education. You know, our education here is more about learning to memorize and regurgitate to go and work as clerks. And, you know, yes, basically that's what it is. Our education should be changed. The system should be changed, geared towards helping students learn how to solve problems. First, how to identify problems and how to solve the problems. Our education system, unfortunately, is failing us. We should focus more on the sciences instead of the arts. That is why, I have had the privilege to be approached by many to pay their university fees or college fees. It got to a point I said to myself, since this is too big a problem, I can't help everyone, I have to prioritize. So I started helping only those who are in sciences, because that is what our country needs. If we invest in the wrong education, we have the wrong workers for tomorrow. And that is what is afflicting us today. We need to invest in our education. The world is now going, well, the world is firmly in the electronic era. Everything is basically computer-based. In order not to be left behind, we have to invest in that type of education for our young ones. If we have the privilege to be elected in office, we would establish a computer laboratory in every high school in this country so that people would be exposed to these things. I had the privilege of representing the presidency of Kenya when they were indicted at the ICC. I worked on the case of Uhuru Kenyatta and the case of William Ruto. They boldly provided a laptop for each Kenyan child going to school. Unfortunately, we do not have those resources, but we should make an effort. So we'll provide a computer laboratory in every high school in this country and give our young children the opportunity to be exposed to this kind of education. That is the minimum. A lot of things we do in this world today is based on the internet. Unfortunately, the internet in the country can sometimes be erratic. I applaud those who have ventured into this area and have made the sacrifices to put Gambia at least on the map when it comes to the internet. But I think there is a whole lot to be done. Our internet is far from stable, so we should invest in high-speed broadband internet that would put Gambia on the map, would enable our communication with the outside world. And in fact, one of the most interesting areas of investment nowadays is to have internet parks where techies will come and work because they need a lot of high-speed internet. Investing in this area would do the Gambia a lot of good. You know, we should thank the police and the security forces in this country enormously for their service. We pay them a pittance and we expect them to do a fantastic job. And that is most unfair. And that is why sometimes you see drivers putting their hands out and you have a hand stretched to receive something. Some call it a bribe, others call it nehal. Some call it, well, one of the basic daily expenses when you travel on our roads. It is most unfair that we put them in this situation. They deserve to have increased salaries, not just them, but across the board. We should base it on a minimum wage calculated country so that every Gambian who has a job can have a decent living and can keep and maintain his or her dignity. We need policies to uplift the middle class. There is no country that would progress without a big middle class. We need to increase or lift the middle class. We have to invest in policies that would do that. We have to have banks that would give out loans, soft loans, so that people can build homes and buy cars. When we were growing up, our fathers were able to take loans from government, loans from banks to build homes, to buy cars. Is that possible nowadays? In fact, the Gambia is one of those countries where if you want to go bankrupt, take a bank loan because the interests are so high. We have to do everything to reduce corruption. It is a disease. Once it takes hold, it is difficult to eliminate. I know a thing or two about that. At the International Law Development Organization, I organize programs that would teach many of the countries in Eastern Europe how to fight corruption. And many of those programs are successful. I can do the same in this country. You see, nowadays, if you have a flight and you need to go to the airport, you have to leave 4 hours ahead of time, because there are no roads. There is traffic jam everywhere. I think it is a no-brainer. We have to invest in roads, but we have to give this priority. My government, if I am privileged to be elected, would take this very seriously and would open an office at the office of the President to be dealing specifically with the building of roads and creation of infrastructure for this country. You know, in Africa, we are blessed with a very important resource. That is the sun. Yet we spend so much money on fossil fuels. I think it makes a lot of sense that we invest in renewable energy so that we can enhance or increase the amount of electricity that is available in this country. Certainly without electricity, our development would be retarded, just as it is presently. I don't understand why we cannot be buying solar, at least to augment the supply we have from the traditional or the thermal, the system that we use today. I learned that in Sierra Leone nowadays, they're doing some public-private partnership to provide solar panels and lights for villages. It has also started here. A friend of mine, Fode Singate, is doing a beautiful job at it. Why can't we put this at government level or at local government level and take electricity all over the country? Our agriculture, unfortunately, has deteriorated significantly. We used to have a GPMB, which used to export a lot of groundnuts. Now that is gone. We have to revamp the agri sector, focus more on commercial farming instead of subsistence farming. And I think we should also invest in durable and perennial crops like cashew. I mean, if the amount of work and energy we put in groundnut, maybe if we put in cashew, we would make more money out of our effort, out of the land and the labor that we use to produce them. Because cashew would give you at least $9,000 for processed cashew per ton. Whereas how much would groundnut fetch you? It would give you peanuts. So instead of farming groundnuts to get peanuts, we farm cashew and get lots of dollars. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. This is not to say that groundnut farming would be scrapped. No, it has its values. It is important. We need our domoda. And we also need the leaves to feed animals. But we can also be smart in our investment in agriculture. We have to consciously draw up a program to create jobs. If we don't do that, our young population will continue to be frustrated And that is a recipe for disaster. I have been to Walo area in Senegal, and I came across a lot of young people. And when I asked, why is it that there are too many young people here? They said they have farms here. They are producing tomatoes for export. They are producing strawberries for export. They are producing vegetables. Now Senegal, they almost feed themselves with rice. There are certain times in the year you cannot import certain agricultural produce in Senegal. Why can't we do that in Gambia and get our youth employment? You know, in every country, the most complex law is the tax law. Our tax law is not any better. But there are lots of leakages in the taxation system of this country. And there are lots of losses. We have to revamp the tax code and invest in implementation and enforcement. That way, the country would be able to collect more taxes and invest it in things that matter to the Gambian people. If we don't, then the most important things would depend on what we can get from abroad. And that would be a terrible tragedy. It is about time we invest in what we can produce instead of depend on handouts from the West. The most disheartening sector in this country is the health sector. And it beats me. Why can't we establish a national insurance system to get everybody good health care, so that all Gambians would contribute to their health care and everybody would have access to better health care than what we have today? Why can't we do that? There is one important demography in this country that we constantly forget when we talk about policies, and that is the diaspora. This is a very important section or segment of our society. They pay the school fees, they give the monthly fish money, and they help sustain a lot of families. They have to be taken into consideration. If I am privileged to be elected, I would establish a Department of Diaspora Affairs at the President's office. Its responsibility would be to help Gambians bring their money to Gambia at the lowest cost possible. Is to help Gambians abroad to build homes in Gambia instead of depend on traditional methods, which leads to a lot of leakages. Senegal, they have the Banque de l'Habitat. It helps Senegalese abroad. They put in their money, they come to Senegal, they find houses that are built for them. Why can't we do that for our Gambian brothers and sisters who live abroad? The biggest challenge for them is to organize investments in this country. Why can't we have an office that could help them while they are even abroad, help organize their paperwork and help get them the tax incentives that they deserve? Why can't we do that? If we are elected into office, we would create that office and we would provide them with all the facilities to enable them enhance or increase their interaction with this country, strengthen their ties with this country, and make sure their investments in this country would be secure. There is one important issue that is very dear to my heart. For 22 years, from 1994 to 2017, Gambians suffered. There are too many victims. I would make it a crusade to ensure justice for the victims. I know it will come with a price, but justice would be done. I will not lead a government that will sweep it under the carpet. I will not be a government that would play political comedy with the lives of the victims. That would not happen in an administration that I lead. I would ensure that all victims would get the reparation that they need and the recognition that they deserve. In the coming months, politicians would be straddling around the country, promising similar policies that I have just outlined. However, we have to be very careful. One must always ask questions. How would this particular candidate deliver on the promises she or he has made? What is her or his experience or qualification? What is her or his claim to these promises that are being made? I am certain that the Gambian people will now reject the politics of Badiya Fasa and the politics of Mbokanais. I do want to believe that Gambians would now make a choice and would choose knowledge over ignorance, integrity over dishonesty, pragmatism over dogmatism and idealism, experience over neophytes, and excellence over mediocrity. Fellow Gambians, I am convinced that with these basic tests, you will find that I am the best candidate to lead this country. It is no bragging. It is no bragging. My CV, my curriculum vitae, speaks for itself. My work has been presented to this country on television. You can all judge me. Can I be truthful? Yes. Can I be just? Yes. Can I be firm? Yes. Can I be true to the truth? Yes. I do not intend to diminish the qualities or capabilities of any of my fellow contenders. I hold all of them to the highest regard. I give them all maximum respect. And ask any one of them, they would attest to it. I give them all maximum respect. And I will continue to do so. But that said, I believe that I am second to none. I have a track record of success in everything that I do. I have worked as the principal or the chief law writer in this country at some stage, albeit in an acting capacity, but I have run the law writing department of this country. And as a very junior lawyer, administrator of justice, I have worked pretty much in all departments except the Registrar General's department at the same time. I have had my fair share of cases, both criminal and civil, ran a commission of inquiry, represented the attorney generals in more than 4 organizations, and at the same time run the drafting department. And I have never complained. I have worked in diplomacy at the highest levels. I can say that I am one of the few Gambians who worked at the United Nations Security Council, and the only who can boast of having written several United Nations Security Council resolutions, some of which were adopted unanimously. I have worked for the United Nations in East Timor as a judicial affairs officer, doing policy work for the setting up of the judiciary. And I have worked there as a prosecutor at the same time for both ordinary crimes and serious crimes. In fact, I am the only person there who worked in 3 offices all at the same time. And at age 33, I became Deputy General Prosecutor for the United Nations Serious Crimes Unit in East Timor. For many, it may not amount to much, but I tell you, it was so impressive, the Washington Post has to do an interview of me and put a photograph of me, one of the few Gambians who've ever had that honor and privilege. In East Timor, I led the prosecution office with 145 United Nations staff. I think that is good training for administration. I joined the International Development Law Organization, having been headhunted by that organization. And I led their large projects unit, responsibility for governance and justice sector reform around the world, which took me to Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Liberia, including the experience of negotiating with the Taliban to establish training programs for Afghanistan judges and prosecutors. I worked at the ICC. I was given responsibility for leading the investigation of the biggest case at the ICC. And I was given the privilege of serving as lead prosecuting counsel, senior trial lawyer, where I led the prosecution of the biggest case before the ICC. For the first time, a sitting head of state is indicted for the crime of genocide. I did that case. I think I have worked in 3 international organizations. I wasn't very pedestrian, but it's not so easy to come across a person who worked in 3 international organizations, 3 different international organizations, and a person who worked on the case of 4 presidents. So I dare say that I'm a very good lawyer. I'm not bragging. And I am sure you would all agree with me that when I did the TRRC, I did not humiliate the country. I did my job with distinction. I am also a businessman, and I have modest success in that area. You know, doing business is difficult, but I know that I have guts. I know I am audacious. I know I am brave. I know I can take investment risks. So, to describe me, I would say I'm a man of the world. I have considerable experiences that I can bring to bear in this work. But above all, I know the law, and the law would be the queen for the administration of any country. And therefore, that makes me uniquely qualified to lead this country. I have a culture of excellence and a culture of success in whatever I do. And this is what I intend to bring into the administration, with respect and humility. And on that note, I thank you all for giving me this honor and privilege. And I say, may God help us all, and may God bless this country. Thank you very much. Are you ready to do it? We will all march on henceforth, and we will take over our country, and we would put it on the track for development, and all those naysayers would be shocked. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Faal, we appreciate. I think you are officially a politician now, and I dare say we would want the Gambian media to have their first interaction with you, and I would like to lead that. And I will also open the floor for any reporters here from any media house. There will be microphones going around, and I will very much encourage Mandinka and Wolof as well, because this is an opportunity where everybody around the country should be able to hear and also get answers to questions. So I'm switching the lane now from moderator now to a journalist. And I'm going to lead the pack, Mr. Faal. I hope you are ready for us, because wax ji bari na, coow li fii lañ ko fekk, te gën naa yokk ñaari fan yu passé yi Faal. ñu naan Essa liggéey ju rafet bi nga def ba pare ci TRRC lan moo war a tax mu nar a yàq loolu ne dafa ut réew te liggéey jooju sax dafa jeexangul sax Faal luy sa tontu.
fi ma tàmbalee mooy ndax liggéey bi jeex na ak ji ndax jeexagut. foo fekk liggéey rek ku ci nekk dafa am wàllaam, kii dafa béy waaram keneen béy waaram. man TRRC béy naa suma waar bem jeex, ñu teg ma ñaanal ma ba pare ne ma jërëjëf gàcce ngalaama, bon nag am naa fiti jóg génn ne jeexal naa suma liggéey.
li ñoo wax mooy ne dafa am ab report, dafa mel ni boo leen liggéeyee ba pare dafa am ay kayit yu ngeen a dajale di wane seen liggéey, di wane itam lan ngeen a digal nguur gi, yan yoon la ñoo war a jaar, yan dampaañ lañ war a joxe ak ni ñu mel, te waxoon nañ ne loolu président jotangu ci, kon doog liggéey bi jeexul.
loolu moom dëgg bu set wecc la, liggéey bi jeexul, waaye ñi ko war a jekkali duñ man, ku ci ne da nga am sa wàll. man suma wàll jeex na bu yàgg, waaye dama toog ne xaaral ma dimbale commission bi jekkali ñoom liñ war a def, dimbale koy gunge nit nag nga gunge ko ba ne egsi nañ, su la ñaanalee tàccul la ni la jërëjëf, xanaa kañ nga dëppa doxi sa soxla moom mi continuer yoon. ba may ma jekkali. xam nga ñeneen ñi dinañ bugg a nax nit ñi ne xaaral ñu tuumal Essa yàqa deram, wane ne liggéey bi jeexagul dafa yàkkamti. xam nga lu taxam dañoo ragal. gis nga soo demee koot sax lawyer ba du bindal judge bi judgment tam ba pare ñëw riit ko ndax loolu day am musuma ko dégga soo manit dimbale naa commissioner si ñoom ñu def seen report li ma ci liggéey bari na dimbale naa leen ko waaye seen report la ñoom du man report bi man duma ko sign man duma sign report lu tax nag may faa des di feyeku seen xaalis te liggéeyuma dara
xam naa ne
waaye rek ma wax ma yokka ci dara
waaw
dinañ ko waxee neneen xam nga luñ ci jublu pour yaaxa suma der rek parce que waxi politique a jot waaye su dee dëgg rek moo taxaw te man ci dëgg rek laay wéy dama respect nguur gi respect ña fa nekka respect Gambian people bi looloo tax ba ma joxee suma closing remarks ma des commission ba tey di leen dimbale moo tax it bañ externe commission bi ma des fa ba tey di leen dimbale su ma demee nag ba foog ne man pare naa commission bi d'accord a man ne pare nañ ñu ne ma jërëjëf ñaanal ma am naa sañ-sañi dem te loolu laa def
balaa ñoo dugg ci soose xam naa ne suma mbokki journaliste si yàkkamti nañ
waaye sa question bi ñaari fànn la woon beneen fànn bi dafa important fu ma jaar wax ci dara
waaw
nga ne def naa liggéey bu rafet def naa liggéey bu baax
foog naa
waaw ñu ne bu ma koy yàqa di taxaw pour président taxaw président bi sax dafa gën a defar liggéey booba ma defoon xam nga man lan laa gëm méritocratie li ma gëm mooy ne liggéey bi nañ ko jox ñi mun ñi munut nañ bàyyi soo ci kaw loolu kon ka nag man wane naa li ma mun na keneen wane munam ku ci nekka suñ laa jox liggéey ñu jooj la ci li nga mus a def te am na lu sax loo xam ne dina génn ci loolu Gambia dey dinañ gis ne ku fi liggéey bu baax def ko mu jaar yoon def ko nit ñi yëpp kontaan nit ñi dinañ la ci teral nit ñi dinañ la ci naw te loolu dañ ko war a yéen ko soo man clé mu ma ne because def naa TRRC dama war a nekk président musuma wax loolu ci àddina man dama ne man Essa Faal am naa gëm-gëmi ne mun naa nekk président am naa gëm-gëmi ne am naa xam-xam bu doy boo xam ne dina tax ma mun a nekk président xam naa ne am naa jaar-jaar yu óor yoo xam ne dina tax ma mun a nekk président xam naa ne Gambia buñ ma tànnee def ma président duñ ma génnee ci bit dëkk ci àddina si ma dem fen ma wax nit ñi ree ma te xam naa ne fépp fuñ ma teg ñama faa taseel la ma leen a wax dina dugg seen noppa yi bon nag foog naa ne mérito naa ko foog naa ne yelloo naa ko foog naa ne mat naa ko parce que am naa yar gi am naa teggin gi am naa xam-xam bi am naa tempérament bi te buñ koo def
waaye balaa waxtaan bi ni neex nag ngeen may ñu parce que tey suñ ndaje la ñun media ba moom tey loolu moo tax man ma teewe moo tax ñëpp fii teewe bon di ngeen ñu may because dafa am yoo xam ne il faut ñu réeral ko mbe duna ma nekk kawon ŋaaloon na ko ye jaasi kunda kele saabi ji anu ŋaaloon na fanaa koye ma nekk kawon moy le doobu je siŋol sa kati bari yaa moy le pour ñin kaaro la seniya kamma la moo jamaal kam min fo wolom ko doo kuwo ñimmi yalan ko yaa kele a ñii ñaata a benta bara man pare ni da koye mansa kunda ñinoo le ba mansa yaa ñinoo la woto foy foŋola doo ku ñimma e man tara tiñaa kam baŋ ñun nam ñinen kaaro
na baadi mandinkoolo al hekkatuñe ni nga mandinko barama do manden Ahmad, come. Thank you. Alia long kumomu munneti. Ni lafita mo to kuyala. Ilafita mo to tinyala. Ite kumol foyami ya lonko abade mala. Ansani be politique wato la. So ning inte lota comme nga declare nyamen bi. Mteni man sakunda mimbe siring. Wole ba fengela. Could you say again? So political tosulem ning inte andi man sakunda. Nge respect le bake. Nge buñale nge hormale. Bari tonya mu munneti. Ya mira ko man sakunda mi ya lonko anin inte be kela la pour jumale be kela mansati. Ya mira ko ibem fasala ye ku nyimma fo nado ko ka. Ita kela. Munem tonyati TRRC doku wo ngabanne commissioners ye yen jay yen tentu idua tanye fa so sani kuma abanta fereng ni mobe tamala alfuta do dulato ya foye ko okay abarka idan jang ita farang so inte nga Gambia kanule bak wala tinna bringan na closing remarks di womu note high note letinom inse doko bulano bari mam woke in sita je nga doko woke inte be messino la num office TRRC billahi wal kitabi inka sino la num je TRRC na staff ika taraje for 1 o'clock 2 a.m. Inka laje pour que doku woke mo jama ke woke le Gambie jambang banko kano dorong le wo sab nga doku woke nga banne idua tanye abanta fereng so sani men kuko mbeku kotento bari yalong abe nyamin obviously man takunda tenjaila katu ni yen jay wote bete yala bari wokan ngalo mune be kering bari wokan be nge bunya nge horma nge respect katu itelo man sakundati
I think we have 2 microphones going around. If any of the media persons are interested, Keba, we can facilitate. First, state your name, your media house, and then ask a direct question. In English, Mandinka, and Wolof, whichever language of your preference. Keba, flex down once in front. Oh, yeah, okay. Please kindly stand up, sir.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Amadou Bari. Man nak Media Sénégal lay ligéyal as correspondent fi. Ñaari laaj la am pour Mr. Fall. Sorry, can you hold this one? Bu ñëk bi modi lan motax mu xaar ba tay ji ni té nak ñu nekk ci da nekk ñetti wër 3 months mo dess lata election bi mu naan defay taxaw ndax xatul bu loolu weesoo itam bu weenul élection yi ndax amul lu muy ragal niñ koy xolé benen bi laaj nga ko Miss Dramé laaj nga ko si way man bëggon nako si laaj touti parce que amna ñu ko don lam-lamé lu yag mom dafa am political ambition ay yoy way fogul ne lum taxaw ni joxna deug ñi nga xamne ñoko doom nga ñi wax ne deug la tay ji ni su fekke amna xam-xam jàng na am na ambition everything waaye ñu bëri xamuñ ko woon balaa commission bi est-ce que ñu koy critiques duñu wax ne moom dafa jëfandikoo ak commission bi def plateforme pour doxal mbiru boppam waaw.
jërëjëf foog naa leer na jërëjëf.
xam nga yenn yi nit ki dina ko wax mu doon wax ju daanu mu doon wax koo xam ne wax la rekk parce que nit ki dafa am lum ci jublu xam nga soo ànduta nit ki di nga ut loo xam ne dina tax nga critiquer ko waaw soo xoolee amuloo loo ko critiquer nga wax ne dafa tardé mbaa dafa yàkkamti mbaa dafa jëfoo TRRC pour taxaw man de mbër moo gis dooleem laa demee ci géew gi duñ la ne mukk yow comme que fi mu ne da nga entraîné ba am doole da nga xaar ba nga faiblesse nga door a ñëw bëre mus nga koo dégg mus nga koo dégg waaye nit ki tam sa CV rek nga am sa jaar-jaar rek nga am du ma teggi TRRC tegee ko fële ne xool leen ma TRRC bokk ci bon dafa mel ni am na lu ñaaw lu ma fa def man la ma fa liggéey yépp lu correct la ci yoon laa ko teg ak ci gom laa ko teg man dama liggéey ak suma xol liggéey ak suma xel liggéey ak suma ngëm leena laa ci yoon jublu def lu baax def lu rafet nga xam ne ku toog Germany di seetaan TRRC doo ne Gambia amuñ ay lawyer ku toog United Nations di seetaan doo ne Gambia amuñ ay lawyer te mun naa laa wax ne foo ci dem ci dëkk yooyu muy New York America muy Germany everywhere in Europe ñu ngi wax suñ TRRC bi suñ ko liggéeyu toon mu baax kenn du ko wax suñ ko liggéeyu toon mu baax Gambien ñi duñ toog di seetaan Gambien ñi dañ bari caractère su leen ko jaralut duñ toog di ko seetaan so man góorgóorlu naa def TRRC bi mu interesting mu jar pour nit ñi di ko seetaan so ku ma ci waxut gàcce ngalaama bàyyi ma rek di ma seetaan waaye bul ko use ne dang maa wàccee du dem Gambien ñi duñ ko nangu ba pare lii la na ci xam nga lu tax ma xaw a tardé xam nga lu tax bugg a xormal Gambien yi bugg a leen a won respect bugg a leen a won ne seen njëriñ mooy suma njëriñ moo tax ma toog fa xam naa ne bés bu dem suma time maa ngi koo perta lan nga teg ne moo tax ñu yokkati TRRC bi ah yéen a ko wax de soo bon nag man la ma fa toog xam naa lan laa doon jànkuwanteel waaye sant yàlla alhamdulillahi rabil alamin jeexal naa ko ci alhamdulillahi rabil alamin kenn mënu maa arrêté ne dinaa def lii maa def nii parce que yoon moo ma ko may man sumay maam dañ dëkk juddoo ci dëkk bi liggéey ko suma maam Matar Madike Faal bàmmeelam mu nga Kañube in URR ñaata nit ñoo fi mun a wone bàmmeeli seen ki jur seen maam bariwul man mun naa ko te dafa liggéey bu set Gambia mu nekkoon one of the most renowned advisors for Musa Molo ok ma jóge fa kooku jur suma maam Essa Faal ak suma maam Madike muy magam suma maam Alaaji Ndongo Raada muy maam Alaaji Ndongo muy maamam suma maam Essa moo sampa 80% of waaf yi nekk Gambia ak bridges yi soo man kooku sax dañ ko war a tappal médaille ne ko baabili man sax parce que su dee dëgg rek la ñoo wax ku build over 80% of bridges and wharfs in this country ah Yaya Jammeh takkal na ko médaille waaye jox ko baabili man sax turee nañ ko koñ ok ma jógee ci kooku ki ma jur àddinaam yépp daf ko def ci jàngale jàngale na daara su leen neexee ñu ne oustaz la woon fine I'm happy to have him as oustaz waaye nekk na principal in a lot of the high schools secondary schools in this country Greater Banjul Middle School suma paako bil so jàngal hundreds of people who are successful in this country so man fii laa bokka kenn mënu ci dara.
Thank you. Please make the question short, and I will also try to answer every question here. Maybe for another,
the second mic is with Maria.
Another 30 minutes or so.
Yes.
I am available to answer questions.
The second mic is with Maria upstairs.
Second mic is there. Somebody?
Yes, somebody.
Yes. My name is Landin Sise from Kerr Fatou. My question is, Mr. Faal, you talk about elites running away. You said some of the elites, including yourself, left the country on what you call fankum fankum. How could you assure the people that when Mr. Faal is voted into the State House, he will not do what he called fankum fankum, like other leaders are doing?
Well, the simple answer is I have no need to. I would not go to State House to be a hustler. I am satisfied with the little that I have, and I think that little is sufficient to sustain me and my family.
Next question, please. Keva, let's get it moving, please.
Yes, Flex. I think Flex wants to answer.
Thank you very much.
Géwél yi di ngeen ñu may nag lii bési media la de suñ paree ñu abal leen micro.
Assalamu alaikum, jërëjëf. Yusuf Taylor for Gainako Online News. So my question is with regards to the TRRC. Again, the report hasn't been submitted, and you have played an instrumental role in the commission. Now, in between now, we have 1 month before that report is finalized. You as lead counsel, will you be needed as to provide clarification, especially for this report before it is finalized? And if that is the case, why could you not have waited for your announcement to come at least in 30 more days after the report has been finished and submitted?
You see, the answer to that question is quite obvious. I have already answered it. It's a report of the commission and of the commissioners. So the commissioners signed their report. If there is any question, but the commissioners themselves would not need to ask me anything, because the commissioners and I and the entire legal team sat over several sessions to discuss all the contents of the report. So there should not be any need to come back to me. But even if there need to consult and find out, the commission has a legal consultant who participated in the writing of the report. That person is there to answer those questions. So really, I don't have much need for the commission now, and that's the reason why I left. And also, I should not allow political maneuvering to jeopardize the political desires of the Gambian people. I should not allow that.
Yes. Let me come in, and let's make the question short. I'm getting bombarded, Mr. Faal. People want to know, what is the name of your party? They want to hear from you. Apparently, you didn't name a party. Are you independent? Do you have a party? What is happening? People want to know.
I don't have a party, and I don't need one. I could not have made a party if I wanted to. You know why? Because I was engaged with the TRRC. So I cannot be going around the country gathering signatures to form a party. I could not do that. In fact, I made up my mind to run for president late in the day Okay, I was toying around the idea. Sometimes I'll say I would, on other times I say I wouldn't. I changed my mind on several occasions. But my mind is now firmed up, and I am in the race. I am now officially, by announcement, a candidate, an independent candidate for president. And let me tell you, one of the principal reasons I did not want to have a party is I don't want to be beholden to any group of people because of the profound and far-reaching changes that I would want to make in the administration of this country, from civil service reform to the fighting of corruption. I don't want people to sit there and say, you must give me a job. I want to have a cabinet that is 50% women. I don't want some guy sitting there telling me you cannot do it. I want to have a cabinet that is ethnically and regionally balanced and diverse. I don't want anybody telling me you cannot do that. You must give me 5 positions. I don't want that. That's why I want to be as independent as possible. Thank you.
Okay, let's get it going.
Second mic. Yes.
My name is Salejang, a freelance reporter. Well, my question is, you spoke a lot about most of the area, poverty, healthcare system, and ensuring justice for victims of the past 22 years. But Essa Faal, as a presidential candidate or aspirant, what will you say to that girl that have been waiting for over 10 to 15 years without justice for being raped, or women that have been facing domestic violence and they couldn't get justice up to this day?
This is a very important question. We must always protect the most vulnerable members of our society. It is an obligation. And perhaps that is one of the main reasons why I chose to become a lawyer. I have prosecuted a lot of these offenses, and I still do. And that is why I sit here today and boldly declare that I would pursue justice for the victims, even though I know that that would be unpopular. I know that there's a huge segment of our society who would not vote for me because of that statement I have just made. But you know what? I am prepared to lose votes just because I need to stand on certain important principles and values. And this is one of them.
Yes. Come on.
Let's go, guys. Please stand up so we can see you. Okay. Name, media, question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yankuba Jallo, Foreign Newspaper. Mr. Faal, usually if you call people, most of the time we ask for manifesto, and then we are told your manifesto is not ready. And now people want to know, how do you intend to address the economic challenges of the country? You are talking about
what?
The economic. You are talking about tax, reforming the tax regime of the country, tax laws and the implementation. What are the plans to address the economic challenges? You are talking about, for example, the mining sector, that it should be in the hands of Gambians. What else do you have for addressing the economic challenges of the country? Because that is the most important thing. The country always run, deficit every time. What are your plans to address this?
You see, a country would not have an economy if it doesn't produce anything. So there are 2 ways to build an economy: through production or through services to generate income and generate wealth. The government does not generally have money to invest in the critical areas, so it has to depend on doing a few things. One is to try to generate revenue through taxes and to invest it in areas. But the most important one is the creation of an enabling environment for businesses to prosper investments to come in for the government to enlarge the pie, that is to increase its revenue base. If there are any experts in the world on creating good environments for businesses to prosper, it is lawyers. That is what we do. Lawyers who write the laws, lawyers who work in policy, and lawyers who oversee enforcement. I have done all those. I have been the acting parliamentary counsel of this country, which is the principal law writer in this country. So my plans are, importantly, to create that enabling environment for businesses to prosper and expand, to create that enabled environment that would give investor confidence for investors to bring their monies here. But my biggest target is Gambians in the diaspora. That's why I want to create a diaspora department, diaspora affairs department at the President's office to encourage and help Gambians bring their money in this country and invest them. What we have today is Gambians, you cannot do business in absentia. You send your money to this country for business, boom. We have to create that environment for these people to be able to invest in this country, and those investments will succeed. We have to create environments for people to invest in services. Contrary to some beliefs, the services sector creates a lot of wealth in a society, and we should encourage that. Creation of insurance companies, creation of building societies. You know, we have the Social Security and the Housing Finance Corporation. Are they building houses in this country? Don't people in the diaspora need houses? Don't they have money to pay for it? So you see, this requires a lot of creativity. If we had created a building society, government uses its money to create a building society, and Gambians in the diaspora invest in that. You can make deposits and savings in that building society, and if you want a house, they can provide you with houses of particular types. They would be building, and people can select and buy. These are all ways of helping to spur an economy. Services is the way to go, mostly for a society that does not produce much. What do we produce? Groundnuts, and we get peanuts. So we should invest in the services sector. As a junior lawyer at AG Chambers, I know that we had in our laws offshore banking rules and so forth. Do we have an offshore bank in Gambia? A lot of these things are in fact in our law books. It's just a question of the government coming up with programs that would help bring these out to light. People would take advantage of them and invest. Government cannot just be printing money, and government cannot invest in things that it does not have. So what government can do is to create that environment for the people to do it themselves. So what government should do to spur economic growth is to create an environment for businesses to flourish, and also to create an environment for businesses and capital to come into the country. And that you do it by way of making sure that there is investor confidence. And that we also plan to do through reducing corruption to the minimum, and also ensuring transparent government, creating e-government such that the bureaucracy is significantly reduced and there is transparency. The biggest problem in Gambia now is if you make a lease for land, you can follow it for 14 years. You will never get your lease unless you have somebody at land's office or an agent who you would pay. He will go rabba and get you the document. That is the system in this country. If we have e-government, as I plan to do, you have a transparent system, you would also have a system that would engender confidence in the people. And so Gambians and foreigners alike would have the confidence to invest in this country. So the way to go is to create enabling environments for businesses that exist to do well, and investor-friendly environment for businesses outside or individuals outside to bring their money in this country. That's what you need to do. That's how you spur economic growth.
Let's get it going. I'll encourage Wolof and Mandinka as well, I think, especially Wolof.
My name is Alimatu S. Bajinka, New Day. Mr. Faal, my question to you is, what happened to all your policies you have listed if you do not win the 4th December election?
Could you say again, what happens to them?
What happens to your policies if you do not win the 4th December election?
Well, I hope that they would be good enough that the person who wins the 4th December elections would find them worthy to implement them. Because our concern is the welfare and interest of the Gambian people. Whether I implement them or somebody else implements them does not really matter. The important thing is to have them implemented for the benefit of the Gambian people.
Thank you very much, Mr.
I believe that I would win. You know why? Because I believe that I have the best policies. Because I believe that I am the better candidate. And I believe that the Gambians would choose wisely. I do believe Gambians would choose knowledge over ignorance, integrity over dishonesty, pragmatism over dogmatism or idealism, experience over neophytes, and excellence over mediocrity. And be rest assured that women would hold a central role in my administration if I am privileged and honored to be voted into office by the Gambian people. I think I am the only candidate. I don't know about the others. I don't know their policies. I did not even have the time to read their policies because I was busy with the TRRC. But I can assure you that with me in office, half of the cabinet would be women. Because I do believe that the women are becoming the most educated segment in our society and they are the most numerous. Why put them aside? I think I have said that in my speech. So women would occupy a central role in my government.
Yes, sir. I would start to begin, Your Excellency.
You can call me Essa, you know.
Yeah, but I'm giving you title now.
No, I don't need titles. You can call me Essa.
Oh, very good, very good.
You see, one thing is for certain.
Yes.
The presidency will never change me.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the man I know. I passed through his father when he was very young.
Please raise your mic a bit. Yes.
When he was very young, and I was going to hotel school, and he was going to Gambia High School. I know his potential, his capability.
BT, they are complaining that it should be a question.
Yes, I'm coming.
Please arrive.
Yes,
please
I'm coming.
Arrive, sir.
And then I know you have a lot of plans. As events flowing, we would like to know from you what are your things, your manifesto, and whatever you're planning to do for the country. But my question here, I know it's not easy when you're running for presidency, for simple reason because you need to have a lot of resources, and you have a very limited time to go. And I want to know actually whether are you making any plans of where you're going to have some groups, your party militants, where are you going to get your party militants, and how you get your resources. And after all, I want to know who is going to fund your party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Be rest assured that the funds to run this campaign will be available. You know what? The Gambian people are very generous. And they want a good candidate. They want a good president. They would put in the resources to fund that campaign. But you know what? I will do what I can for this campaign. Not so much for me, but for the purposes of bringing change in this country. And that is all that matters. I can't recall the other question because I could not hear you clearly. But yes, who would be my sponsors? I am not looking for any grand sponsors because I don't want anybody to think that they can control me or direct policies. I don't want that. I will take the $5 or the 10 bututs. You know, when we worked for GNF, I did a fundraising in Mimbekere. The people were so happy that one woman came and gave us a basket of jahatu. Another man came and gave us a cow. You know what? Those people and the person who contributed $100,000 were all the same for me. They were all well-meaning Gambians who were contributing to help ensure the welfare of the Gambian people. For me, I'm not looking for grand investors. I'm just looking for enough moderate funds to fund my campaign. I would do a fundraising, and I trust that the Gambians would give. And believe me, boy, we have support. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take 3 more questions. But for all of the media that's here, please, Boor is here. Please identify him, chase him, follow him for one-to-one interviews. I think Kerr Fatou has one tomorrow. But then Boor can coordinate for one-to-one interviews should you need it. We are not going to spend the whole night. This is a naming ceremony. It's a lunch. We're supposed to be here for an hour, and he's already been here for more than 2 hours. So perhaps 3 more questions, apart from the one I'm going to ask now. There are 2 questions that have been sent to me. One is, what are you going to do for the community that is differently able in the Gambia? People want specific answers to that question. Nañ ko def ci olof sax silmaxa yi ñu tële yi lan nga am pour wax leen boo gañee nekk président Gambia lan ban yaakaar nga na woon lan nga leen mën a dikk pour won le léegi-léeg cër yi manqué waaye warul tax ba ki silmaxa warut a bokk ci liggéeyum réew wala waruñ koo fonka wala jox ko aajo wala jox ko gëdam.
I have a very strong relationship with some of these organizations. If you ask them in Gambia, I have funded a lot of their programs, including their participation in Paralympics. A lot of these organizations have named me as a patron. It's because of, did you say that I should answer in Wolof?
In fact, that's what I preferred.
Okay. Mbootaay yi yëpp am na ak ñoom relationship, am na jokkoo guñ am. Silmaxa yi am naa ñoom relationship. Lafañ yi am naa ñoom relationship. Mumu yi am naa ñoom relationship. Ñoom ñëpp laa def teranga suma digganteeg ñoom parce que ñoom ñëpp seen programme si dinañ ma yëgal may ci def li ma mun. So bon yaakaar naa ne su dee mun naa def loolu ci fi ma toog nii bon yaakaar naa ne bu ma Gambien si óoloo doy ma doy leen bañ ma tànn def ma président bon am naa yaakaar ne xanaa taranga googu duma ko bàyyi. an liñ leen mun a defal mooy yëg ñoom lan mooy seen mbébét ba pare ñu jëm koo saafaraal diggante boobu laa tabaxoon suma digganteeg ñoom waaw liñ war a def mooy fexe differently able people bi ñu am representation in the National Assembly. That is one. xam nga loolu amut su amee it yëguma ko xam nga su boobaa.
defe naa am na benn jigéen bu selmaxa bi fa nekk.
am na jigéen bu selmaxa bu fa nekk. But that is in the right direction because I have always advocated for that. teg si dolli mooy seen jànga parce que fii ku differently able rek dañ dee foog ne da nga manqué war nañoo create programmes yoo xam ne nit ñi dinañ leen gën a understand gën leen a appreciate xam ne ñii dañ mu nee beneen boor nekkut ne dañ manqué loolu benn la ci rax ci dolli mooy dañ leen war a dëgëral niñ leen a dëgëralee mooy ñu jox leen training yoo xam ne dina leen mun a dimbale pour ñu gën a mun a dunda ni leen yàlla bindee ba pare mun a liggéey loo xam ne dina leen njëriñ loolu lañ leen war a defal leneen liñ ci mun a defal mooy tam defal leen yoo xam ne dina leen dimbale ci seen àddina buñ bari jafe-jafe comme zebra crossings ci place yoo xam ne fa la gaa yi dëkkee nga def zebra crossing ñu am facilities like proper walking sticks and so forth am facilities for guide dogs gisaguma ko ci dëkk bi there is no reason why we cannot have guide dogs suñ amee an expert mu ñëw fii jàngal ay nit ñu ñëw trainer guide dogs we should be able to have guide dogs muy dimbale nit ñi xam naa fii nag dëkki jullit la ñu bari duñ bëgg a téye xaj di dox ak moom waaye loolu personal choice la so loolu it beneen approach la another approach mooy ñu ensure ne all public buildings def nañ fa facilities yoo xam ne dina leen dimbale xam nga loolu tam lu important la yii lañ leen mun a defal ba pare yokka seen possibilities ci àddina comme mun a am liggéey di liggéey ci nguur gi foo xam ne mun nañ faa jël selmaxa ñu jox ko liggéey yoo xam ne dinañ ko mun a def in braille su ko defee muy mun a read scripts yoo xam ne bind nañ ko yooyu lañ mun a defal gars yi man am naa ñoom special relationship boo xam ne yaakaar naa ne ñoom war nañ ñoo xam ne su ma yàlla dimbale woon Gambien yi wóolu ma tànn ma teg ma fa li ma teraanga gi maa jëflanteeg ñoom dinaa ko continuer jëflanteeg ñoom parce que sax day du wut suma warugal pour man may fond seen yenn programme yi nguur gaa ko waroon a def waaye fu nguur gi amut bon doomi réew mi rek jéem a jóg takka seen digga jéem leen a dimbale loolu maa ngi koy def jërëjëf
ma yokk si rek Keba xam naa yaa ngi am ñetti nit ñu pare waaye fan yële dama dajeeg benn silmaxa bu magistrate his lordship Mohamed Kurubali lu ma yéeme man silmaxa lumma mu nekk magistrate boo xam ne mu ngay def àtte fii si Bruce court kon nag loolu firnde la ne am na ñoo xam ne buñ amee jàppale gi war nañoo bokk si liggéey réew mi pour ras dolli rek ci loolu ne am na solo laajte boobu Keba please
mic number 2.
Can I go? Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. My name is Omar Faye. I'm a freelance reporter with the Chronicle. This question, you have said you don't feel the need to register a party and time didn't permit you due to your unfinished work during the TRRC. I want to know, does Essa Faal have an established cabinet in waiting, provided that the election turns in your favor? And the second question is, you have spoken extensively about corruption, stating it's one of the most, drilling or taking our country backwards. Why do you think there is high level of corruption, and how is your government in waiting going to address issues of corruption if it happened under your administration?
Thank you. Very, very good question.
Yes. Forming the government is very easy. I know I have people who are willing to serve, and I am also talking to other people who I hope would be willing to serve. You know, I want to bring a government that is based on merit. You only serve because you deserve to serve. You only serve because you are better than all those who are available. You only serve because you are one of the best and brightest this country has to offer. That is my plan. Such people are not so easily available, but I am certain that when the call of duty comes, they would come to serve. Another thing I want to do, I have told you I want a cabinet of 50% women. I want a cabinet of about 40% from the diaspora. And I want all of them to be top professionals in their respective areas. So be rest assured that if we are lucky to be voted into office by the Gambian people, that trust and confidence they have on us would never be betrayed. On corruption, Yes, it is a big problem in this country. One of the biggest problems for corruption, corruption, it can be cultural, attitudinal, but also it could be circumstantial. The biggest problem we face here is the salaries are very low. The salaries are very poor. And therefore people, so amut dépasse, sëñ bi, nga gis ku la ne dara ngi nii, nga xalaat ne kër day ñaari fan joxewuloo fa dara, soxna si doon na di ras, xale yaa ngi jooy, soo moytuwul mu def dara. So suñ gaa yi korop lu ci ëppa ñoo leen korop loo. So moo tax may advocate ne there should be a minimum wage calculated on the basis of the bread basket cost for the average family in this country. Nga xam ne booy liggéey ñuy laa fay dinañ la fay loo xam ne di nga mun a amee sa njaboot di nga mun a garder sa dignity ba pare sàmm sa ngor waaye fay la loo xam ne dafa tax nga am yaakaar ba pare toon nekka ñaankat mbaa kuy jël dara si ron yal na ñu ci yàlla musal yal na fi yal na jeex léegi.
Second to last question.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Let me talk. If I don't talk, I won't be able to rest.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sam Bob of Paradise TV. Mr. Faal, we will want to ask, what is your plan about the valuation of the Dalasi as it was before during the time of Jawara? And secondly, we will also want to ask about the transformation of the transport or the public transport sector. What is your investment in the public transport sector? And the reduction of the loss of life in the traffic. And thirdly, we will want to ask about the decentralizing of government offices in other remote countries or other remote places in the country.
Okay, I'll take that last one first. In 1995, I worked on writing the governance framework of this country. I was a member of the governance task force, and we wrote the governance framework for this country. I also wrote the legal aspects of the decentralization plan in 1995. You see, the biggest problem is resistance on the part of local government authorities. Yes, they all want decentralization, but decentralization must come with accountability. You put in mechanisms in order to avoid corruption and theft, they resist. So, and that is why government is usually very jealous in decentralizing power to local government authorities. But I think it is important that we decentralize. It is important that people at the local level would take responsibility for their lives and their own governance. I agree with you absolutely that should happen, but it should happen in a very organized manner, and we must ensure that there is accountability and adequate safeguards to ensure that the local people are not at the mercy of local government officers. The other question you asked is about revaluation of Dalasi. Well, you see, it is disheartening that you will take 50 of our Dalasi to get $1 US. It is disheartening. But also we must realize that this is a function of economic factors. And we should work to enhance the value of our exports, and that would help to have a positive effect on the value of our currency. I am not an expert in economics. My economics is only up to A-level standards, but I do think that just revaluation of a country's currency without having anything to back it would just spell disaster for that country, and therefore must be avoided. So we must do these things with the advice of the economists, making sure that we keep to the fundamentals. And that is the way it should go. I would not so boldly jump to say that, we revalue our Dalasi just without having an economic basis for it and without having a proper study of the situation. I think it would be foolhardy to just jump into that. This is a very delicate area. It's an area where angels would tread, so fools should not just jump in like that.
Final question, please.
Okay, good evening, Faal.
It was too pregnant, your question, that was why. So let's get the last question, please.
Public transport.
Public transport.
I think I know a thing or two about that. I had invested in public transport. At one point, I had about 21 or 23 minivans. I thought, I can do it the way they do it in Kenya. One person would have 100 matatus. You would find a woman there who has 200 matatus, and the business is going on well. Well, Gambia is a different environment. Public transport is very difficult to run and manage. It's just like our NAWEC or our GUC. We're still struggling to solve those two conundrums. But I think it is doable. With greater discipline in our society, with less corruption, we should be able to do effective and efficient public transportation. But without that, public transportation in this country is bound to fail. Just imagine, you have a driver, okay, who would go in the morning, make $1,000, enough for Werse. He would go and give it to a zero man. Okay, and he would go take care of other business. The zero man would take half of the takings and he would give it to the apparente, and the apparente would go and do the last dash. And then at the end of the day, having enjoyed all the money that has been worked, they gathered a little bit and give to the owner of the vehicle. Or they even complain that they had a breakdown. That cannot help public transportation in this country. You understand? The problems are too big. They are too big. We cannot solve that problem without training for drivers and these zero men and apprentices. We cannot solve that problem without greater discipline amongst them. We cannot solve that problem without greater regulation. In Kenya, regulation did help. But above all, we cannot solve that problem if we do not eliminate or reduce corruption significantly in this country.
So, Mr. Driver,
final question.
It's here, please.
One final. Please. Choose the person. One final. We gotta go.
I will not leave this place.
Last question.
No. Please. Ladies first, please. Mr. Faal.
Did you hear that? He said this is child's play. You've done long hearings before. Let's do last question, please.
Good evening, Mr. Faal. I am Fatma Keita from MDI. Mr. Faal, I have no doubt in your competence, and I know very well that when you are giving the vote, you can perfectly handle this country. But then, it is said that you, as a businessman or a boss or a leader, you cannot stay at home and want to handle the organization. You cannot, and to be for an organization to achieve its goals, you must be a leader, not a boss. And then you have perfectly shown that you are a leader. But then how were you able to handle it? With all the traumas in TRRC and your life especially, you have your own life to live. How were you able to handle it? Emotionally, physically, and I hope you give very much of this.
You see, I had good training and good experience. Lo nekut talibem do munaneka serinyam. You see, I had a wealth of experience before coming to the TRRC. You see, in East Timor, I was acting Deputy General Prosecutor and then Chief of Prosecution. I had 145 UN staff. Okay? These people are from different countries, from diverse backgrounds. I think during my time, only 8 of them were black. So you know what that meant. To manage all these people was a challenge. I did it exceptionally well. And to have been selected for that role at my age and the experience I had spoke volumes. So I had a wealth of experience in that regard. At IDLO, as head of large projects unit, I had to run projects around the world. In Afghanistan, for instance, I had 2 projects, one for $6 million and another for $14 million. I ran both projects successfully. And the people who manned those projects were lawyers from different countries. So that too is another experience. At ICC, I had the biggest team. In fact, most of the lawyers who were in prosecution would prefer to work in my team. I had Chinese, I had Korean, I had Caucasians, I had Africans, I had Arabs. I managed them all with success. My work has taken me all over the country, all over the world, I mean to say. I have worked in Africa, I have worked in Europe, I have worked in America, I have worked in Asia. That prepared me for what I was to find at TRRC. I bet you would not find any of the candidates who have worked for 3 international organizations, have worked in almost every continent or several continents, and have worked in several fields from diplomacy, accountancy, law enforcement, good governance, and you name it. You cannot find all that experience in any candidate except me. And that is why you should vote me to be your president come December 4, so that we will take our country back and put it on the right track for development and make Gambia what it should be. Thank you very much.
I would like you to make closing remarks in Wolof. Géwél itam dañu am gëdda ñu jox leen seen wàll. Closing remarks, but I would rather it's in Wolof, 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you. Jërë ngeen jëf Gambia. Kontaan naa lool. Kontaan naa lool ne am naa opportunity bi pour ñëwaat liggéeyaat suma réew. Gambia yëpp gis nañ suma liggéey. te Gambia yëpp day xam nañ ndax mun naa suma liggéeyam déet. Képp ku fi taxaw nit ñi gis nañ li nga fi def. Ku ci nekk nañ la joojee ci sa record. ñun dey su dee dañ bugg a dem kanam waruñoo joojee suñ boppa ak local standards de. su dee dañ bugg a dem ci kaw mel ni yeneen dëkk yi niñ mel dañ war a door nag di indi standards yooyu fii su ko defee ku ci nekk kuy sàkku dara ñu joojee la standards yooyu parce que man leen laa gëm bu la nit ne dinaa la jëlee fii ci suuf yóbbu la fale ca kaw laaj ko ndax yow day jóobu nga fa sa boppa parce que ku mun a jëleewut boppam ci suuf yóbbu ko ca kaw bu la ne dinaa la fa yóbbu daf laa nax. Baading mandinkoolu election siita kotenke de inte dey mu Gambia di ngolati ni mot natan ya si man sotoje katu ibe mine jeleje ibe mandinkol taralaje ibe suruwal taralaje ni natan ya ibe fulo fanan taralaje mbe ala dani la ni natati ni mo nataje kotenke aye si koten taraje katu nte ngam fanje comme Gambian dingoti dorong si ko mantara ntolya ni natanya ding folo mimbenya amanke suruwati momi ya lonko nka kilin kotoma mandin kolem ala suruwa fango aman sene ya bake yeah. So mune lebe caring sanye ka mansa ka election o fay ka mansa tombo be mewol mo be danila ye candidatul be George ke nyininka ila baluwo kono ye doku sifa munele ke ijninka ye munele mara ya marale daming ya bondi munto to ya samba munto